is a rare event in military history when a legend is replaced. For over 70 years, the American sidearm was the venerable, massive, and powerful Colt M1911. Its replacement, chosen in the 1980s, was the sleek, modern 9mm Beretta 92 FS, officially designated the M9. This decision was meant to modernize the US arsenal and align NATO forces under a common caliber. But this transition was anything but smooth. The M9 was instantly thrust into a firestorm of controversy. It was dubbed the Wonder Nine, hailed for its capacity and ergonomics. Yet it was plagued by catastrophic failures in the field, most famously the slide breakage incidents that severely injured sailors. The M9, a symbol of modernization, became a flashpoint for political corruption and a source of deep mistrust among the fighting forces. The paradox of the M9 is this: it was a technically excellent civilian pistol, chosen through rigorous testing, yet it failed spectacularly under the unique stress of military service. How did a gun designed to be the definitive successor to the M1911 earn the resentment of the troops? And what dark secrets behind the selection trials, including accusations of rigging and flawed testing, finally led the Pentagon to scrap the M9 after barely 30 years and seek its replacement? The SIG P320? This is the untold history of the M9, the gun that couldn't escape its legacy, the political battles fought in the halls of Congress, and the catastrophic mechanical flaw that forced the military to replace a legend twice. To understand the M9's fate, we must first go back to the weapon it was meant to supplant. The M1911, chambered in 45 ACP, was an icon. But by the 1970s, it was bulky, low capacity, and politically outdated. NATO demanded standardization on the 9mm Parabellum cartridge. The US military's search for a new sidearm began in the late 1970s under the Joint Service Small Arms Program, JSSAP. The stated goal was simple: find a highly reliable, high-capacity 9mm pistol that could withstand extreme environments. The process, however, was immediately marred by inter-service rivalry and political interference. The initial trials were chaotic and inconclusive. The Air Force, eager for modernization, had adopted the Beretta 92S ahead of the Army, creating friction. The primary challenge was finding a pistol that could meet the brutal mean rounds between failure standards, a guaranteed minimum number of shots without a malfunction. The competition was a fierce, global affair involving Browning, Smith & Wesson, Sig Sauer, and Heckler & Koch. The Beretta 92 FS, an evolution of the earlier 92 series, stood out mechanically. Its open slide design was celebrated for aiding cooling and reliable ejection, and its 15-round double-stack magazine represented a major leap over the 1911 7-round capacity. Despite the initial chaos, two guns consistently remained at the top: the Beretta 92 FS and the SIG Sauer P226. But as the process dragged on, the trials became less about engineering excellence and more about procurement politics and international pressure. In 1985, after years of trials, retrials, and court battles by disgruntled competitors, most notably Smith & Wesson, the US Army officially announced the winner, the Beretta 92 FS, which was adopted as the M9. The decision sparked immediate controversy. Critics argued that the trials had been designed from the beginning to favor the Beretta. There were accusations of a lowball initial contract offer by the Italian manufacturer that competitors couldn't match, only to be followed by higher prices on subsequent orders. The most intense friction came from Congress. Legislators, particularly those tied to districts with domestic gun manufacturers like S&W, argued vehemently that the military should be purchasing American-made weapons. This led to the highly unusual Buy American clause being inserted into the contract, forcing Beretta to establish a manufacturing plant in the US, in Maryland, to produce the M9. This political battle, fought over jobs and national pride, slowed the M9's integration and cemented the perception that the selection process had been politically rigged. Despite the noise, the M9 rolled out. Troops immediately appreciated the 15-round capacity, but many felt the 9mm round lacked the stopping power of the venerable 45 ACP. The ergonomics, designed for a wide array of hand sizes, were praised by some and criticized by others as being too bulky. The new gun was now fully integrated into the military, but it was already tainted by years of corporate lawsuits and congressional squabbling. The political trials were over, but the gun was about to face the devastating reality of combat trials. The M9's true crisis began in the late 1980s. The issue was the slide. Under extreme, sustained firing schedules, far harsher than typical civilian use, the metal slide on some early production M9s began to fracture and catastrophically break off the frame. The most famous incident occurred in 1988 at the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Crane, Indiana. During testing, the rear portion of a slide broke clean off an M9, traveled backward, and struck a Navy SEAL in the face, causing serious injury. Similar, though less severe, incidents occurred shortly thereafter. The immediate reaction was panic and widespread public loss of confidence. Beretta and the Army investigated and traced the issue to two factors: faulty steel. A batch of slides produced by Beretta's Italian facility had metallurgical defects. Increased pressure. The US military was using ammunition, specifically the NATO L7A1 submachine gun load, that produced pressures far exceeding the M9's original specifications. Beretta moved swiftly. They redesigned the slide, incorporating a crucial safety feature: the enlarged hammerpin head. This simple modification ensured that if the slide fractured, the hammerpin head would catch the rear portion of the slide, preventing it from striking the user. This fix was implemented on all subsequent 92 FS and M9 pistols. However, the damage was done. The M9 was now the mechanical scapegoat. Regardless of the fix, the M9 carried an indelible mark of being fundamentally unsafe. Reports of breakages, difficulty maintaining the open slide design in sandy environments, and a persistent belief that the 9mm round was insufficient circulated heavily among troops deployed overseas. As the US engaged in the conflicts of the 21st century, Iraq and Afghanistan, the M9's flaws were amplified. The open slide design, a blessing for clearing jams, became a curse in the relentless dust and sand of the Middle East, allowing excessive grit into the mechanism and contributing to stoppages. Furthermore, the mandatory replacement of the locking block every few thousand rounds became a logistical headache. The most persistent issue, however, was the political failure of standardization. While the 9mm caliber had been chosen for NATO uniformity, the US military decided that it needed a pistol with greater stopping power and versatility, eventually pushing past the initial 9mm restriction. In the mid-2000s, the Army launched the Modular Handgun System (MHS) program. This was the definitive signal that the M9 era was ending. The requirements were radically different. The pistol needed to be modular, allowing for different frame sizes and calibers, feature a standard rail for accessories, and crucially, utilize a striker-fired mechanism, departing from the M9's hammer-fired operation. Beretta, seeing the writing on the wall, submitted an improved version, the M9A3. But the Army's requirements effectively ensured the winner would be a completely new design. In 2017, the Army announced the winner, the SIG P320, adopted as the M17/M18. The military had deliberately chosen a modern, fully modular, striker-fired pistol, reflecting a complete rejection of the M9's 1980s design philosophy. The M9's career was defined by its political birth and its mechanical death. It was not a bad pistol. The Beretta 92 FS remains a beloved civilian sidearm. But it was a necessary failure for the US military. Its adoption broke the M1911's decades-long monopoly and forced the military into the modern era of high-capacity magazines and standardized calibers. However, its failures, the slide breakages and the operational issues in desert environments, exposed profound flaws in the military's testing and procurement processes. The M9 ultimately served as a 30-year placeholder. It taught the military what it did not want: hammer fire, non-modular, susceptible to sand, and directly paved the way for the MHS program. The M9 was not replaced because it was fundamentally flawed as a pistol, but because the military recognized that the process that chose it was flawed. Its legacy is the $347 million contract given to SIG SAP